verse 19, in which also Jesus went and announced his success, his resurrection, to the spirits. That would be fallen angels in prison. They're incarcerized, and they were disobedient at the time when the flood was approaching, right? That caused the madness and insanity of the world that time. During the days of Noah, as they were waiting for the flood, and Jesus drew, as you know, a comparison between the second coming and the times of Noah. During the construction of the ark, in which a few, that's to say 8 souls, I translate that as persons, of course, and many modern translations get that right. 8 persons, human persons, were brought safely through the water. Now, this was a type, a correspondence, a pattern. God works in patterns. He had a virgin in the time of Ahaz who had some sort of miraculous experience. And that was a type of the virginal birth of Jesus. God works in patterns. The first Exodus is going to be followed by a future Exodus. That's wonderful. Here we have a pattern. That episode then of Noah and 8 persons coming through safely via water corresponds exactly in verse 21 to baptism. That's water baptism. Any system which denies the need of obedience to water baptism is very false and dangerous. It needs to be said. Baptism here has a saving effect. That's what Peter said. Corresponding to that, water baptism, he means, now saves you. And he quickly adds, I don't mean, of course, just removing the dirt from your flesh. I don't mean that. Obviously, I had to say that because some silly person is going to think that's what he meant. But what does it mean? An appeal to God. This is what water baptism does. It's your appeal to God for a clear conscience through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. How important is water baptism? Absolutely important. The fact that some Unitarians argue about this is an absolute disaster. They should be severely warned against loss of salvation through disobedience, because water baptism is not an arguable subject in the New Testament. They were baptized upon the command of the apostles. Jesus himself was baptized, and Jesus himself did perform baptisms, John 4 says, although Jesus didn't do the dunking, his agents did it, just like Paul did. Paul said, I can't remember how many people I baptized. I never baptized this family and that family. I don't remember the rest. But they were all baptized under threat of loss of salvation through disobedience. I think that needs to be said clearly. So here we have it. Baptism saves you. It's part of the saving process. Like you don't normally say, well, I'm going to get married. Well, not bother with the ceremony. It won't bother with that. But you don't have that option. You should get married legally, of course. And you should enter the Christian faith legally according to the command when they were baptized, Acts 8:12, when they were baptized in water, of course, and they didn't get the Spirit at that particular moment in that case because they were the very first people to be converted in that part of the world. It was a first. And so the apostles had to come and lay hands on that occasion. That wasn't the pattern always. But water baptism certainly was, not infant baptism, but baptism of responsible adults who understood the gospel of the kingdom, Acts 8:12, the things concerning Jesus. Then they were ready to be baptized. That's not hard. That's very easy. Okay, so then a good conscience comes through by being baptized. If you're not baptized in water, you should have a very bad conscience. Your conscience should be killing you. Oh, my goodness, what am I doing? I'm threatening my own salvation by not being baptized. That's terrible. And, of course, not just the death of Jesus, but his subsequent resurrection. If Jesus is not alive, the whole faith is failed. That's very, very clear. But please note then, our friends who were taught by a very unqualified gentleman, I won't name in public, who said that water baptism doesn't count, was fundamentally dangerous and should be publicly renounced and spoken against for the sake of keeping people safe. So, people out there in church should be alarmed at the possibility of peril from the pulpit. You might not be getting a fair deal. You might be transgressing the commandments of God with man-made conditions and traditions. That's an alarming thing. Inquiry would be the very first port of call in that situation. Checking it out, being a Berean.